Hey everybody, my name is Nicoletti. I'm an attorney here in Florida, and welcome to the Nicoletti Show, where I bring on real estate super investors, rising rock stars, movers and shakers, and leaders of clubs in their communities that educate, entertain, and inspire all things Florida real estate on how you can take your company to the next level. And on this show, I talk about Florida real estate. I don't talk about any other states. I focus primarily on Florida, and I want to make sure people know when they tune in and they're interested in Florida, that's what they're going to get. And today's show, I have on an amazing guest. He is the man, the myth, the legend, the Ron Legrand. And Ron, we're going to talk about so many different things. He's a wealth of knowledge. He's been doing it for 30, 40 years in investing, how we went from the 9-to-5 job that I've seen him post on Facebook with his groups and his program, and now how he's all in on investing. We're going to dive into some land trusts. We're going to dive into some creative financing, at least to own, all the good stuff Ron knows about. We're going to talk about some marketing, how he deals with sellers, and we'll talk about probate, because Ron knows that we have to talk about probate. If we don't talk about probate, what's the point of being on here right now? So without further ado, I want to introduce Ron. And Ron, welcome to my show.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure.
Thanks for having me, Ron. The last time you and I talked, it was still during the pandemic, June or August, and we were on your show, and we were talking about all things quiet title, probate, and I had such a great time. I have to bring you on here because you have so much information. And for those of the investors that are out there that have ever wanted to get started with real estate, if there was one person that can really tell their story, it's you. You are very open about this. You put it on your Facebook sponsored ads. You were the 9-to-5 guy. Now you are the full real estate mogul. You are a mogul. And please tell everybody, like, how did that all start for you? What got you inspired to be in the real estate world, and where are you today?
Well, most of it was hunger. Well, I was on I wish it was a 9-to-5 job. I was actually managing a service station 12 hours a day, about 6 days a week, and frankly, just barely getting by. And all started with a washing machine. My wife asked her to buy a new one, and when it broke down, I blew up, got mad, and spent the night thinking about what a loser I was, and simply woke up the next morning and decided I wasn't going to do this for the rest of my life, and started looking, and I found real estate. And I went to a seminar that I couldn't afford, and I went out and did my first deal in 3 weeks, got my first check for $3,000, and I haven't looked back since. And that was about, well over 3,000 houses ago, and 39 years now. 39 years I've been doing this. I've been teaching it for 32 of those 39.
So when you did your first deal, do you remember what it was? Like, what was that one deal that took you to the next level?
Are you kidding? You never forget your first deal. Okay. I made $3,000 on it. It was a quick little wholesale deal, scared the crap out of me. I knew something was going to go wrong. I needed the money so bad. It was already spent before I got it. And that was in 1982, which is when I started.
Wow. So 1982, you're doing it for years and years. When did you start actually doing your program? And for all that are listening out there that are interested in the Ron Legrand program, tell us about that, Ron, because you learned this stuff.
Best way to find out what I do now, which is not wholesaling or rehabbing much, is I'm in the pretty house business now, where we buy houses with terms and sell them with terms and create long-term wealth and residual income and all kinds of other goodies you don't do by just flipping properties like most people think the business is about. And I created a 90-minute online training on that. That's at prettyhouseterms.com/Al, prettyhouseterms.com/Al. It's free. And you'll see what thousands of my people are doing around the country today, contrary to what you see on the television shows, which are all fake news, by the way. There's no reality in those reality shows. They're just entertainment. So there's an easy way and a hard way. I did the hard way about 25 years. So finally I decided to do it the easy way, make more money, less work. And I'm all about automation and systemization today as well. It's all about a part-time business that creates a full-time income. And fortunately, I created a lot of millionaires once they get it and get out of the conventional wisdom mindset. My hardest job is changing people's thinking more than teaching them real estate.
So was the /Al just the promo for you being on here today for people to go, or is that just the URL for the whole program.
No, I just want to know if they came through your podcast.
Gotcha. I gotcha. Well, that's good. So, you're talking about your program changing the mindset of how people and investors are thinking in your program. I know you are a big proponent of creative financing. You talked about that because the first time I actually saw you, Ron, I saw you at the Jack's RIA event sometime like in August or September of last year. And it was first time I ever heard, you're the legend. And you were all in on explaining the creative owner financing, and you love the land trust. For those that are out there, talk to us about that.
Well, people call it creative financing. That's a term that was back in the 80s. It's not that creative. I just either buy with owner financing or I buy taking over the debt subject to, or at least with an option to buy. If that's creative, I guess that's creative financing. And then here in Florida, I install lease option tenant buyers and create long-term wealth, monthly cash flow, big checks up front, because I get non-refundable option deposits that measure in the thousands, not the hundreds. My days of renting houses are over. I will only rent to own them or at least purchase them. At one time, I had 276 tenants here back in the day, Al, and 200 of them were Section 8 HUD tenants. And I had dark hair back then. They turned it white. No more of that crap.
Right.
My tenant buyers do their own repairs with their own money, and they have a big skin in the game, thousands of dollars. If they don't pay the rent, they lose that. And it's a totally different mindset than tenants. Tenants, I'm done with. Tenant buyers, I like.
Well, you brought up a great point and a question that I usually ask in the podcast, which is, if you knew now what you knew then, what would you do differently? Like, what do you know now that you just would say, I would never do that again? I think that's probably one, the tenants and the Section 8 stuff.
Well, I got probably a good long list of that, as all men do. First of all, I might ask for help more. Men don't do that. Men don't follow instructions very well, because if it's working perfectly, it has to be fixed. Right, Al? Okay.
Gotcha.
It's testosterone. There's nothing we can do about it, man. We're born with it. But I think the thing that took me so long to learn was to get the hell out of your own way and let other people do all the stuff that you can do. Nothing in your business that you can't delegate if you choose to. And that's the way my business is run today. I'm very inactive in them, and I just kind of watch over them, but I'm not involved in day to day. What I'm doing right now is pretty much what I do, and I teach. Still like doing that. But the hard job is get out of your own way, get automated, systemized, learn to delegate, and then that gives you time to think and grow your business, and don't get caught up in the minutia where you don't have time to do anything but put out the next fire. Boy, there's plenty of them. You put out one, here comes another one right behind it. Well, I've learned over time, there's other people who can do all that for me.
And to your credit, I remember seeing an investor out there post, Adam Locklear. He said one of the best advice you ever gave him was, Dad, out of the way. And then you looked at Adam and said, Adam, you need to get out of your own way. And so I remember seeing that. What's that?
I do remember that.
Yeah. And when you just said, get out of your own way, that was something I remember seeing. And that's a great quote by you, Ron, for people out there. So I would say, land trusts versus LLCs. What makes you love the land trust more than doing the LLCs, where you can get the write-offs in the membership?
All right. Well, you get the write-offs regardless, because land trusts have nothing to do with taxes. It's a see-through entity. It won't affect taxes in any way, shape, or form. LLCs are also a pass-through entity. They don't have a tax return or tax bracket. It all goes through to you. But I teach a lot on this subject. In fact, for hours. So for the little time we got right now, land trust is nothing more than an entity to take title to a property. And that's all it does. It has no bank account, no EIN number, has no filing every year, none of that stuff that an LLC has. So the land trust takes title, but I usually have an LLC own the land trust. Now, there's one house in one trust, one egg in one basket. Most attorneys advise to throw all your properties into an LLC, but that's bad advice, okay? If I have 10 houses in one LLC and some catastrophe happens on one of them, and I got a great big old judgment way beyond insurance, which is not hard, and there goes all 10 of them. So the whole basket was affected by one egg. Not very good advice. Whereas if I take title, one house, one trust, that only that one trust is affected by any calamity like that, because the LLC is not liable for anything. It's the owner of the trust, not the owner of the house on public record. For us with land trust, we have privacy. Nobody knows who the beneficial interest is except the beneficiary. And we have lien attachment protection, because if the house is owned by a trust, a lien against the individual can't attach to a house the individual don't own. The individual owns trust owns house. So that includes the IRS tax lien. That's pretty important to some people. And then you have, well, you're the guy that knows this. You've got probate avoidance, because trusts don't die, people die.
Right.
So if the beneficiary dies on the trust, so what? Nobody knows, nobody cares anyway. The other beneficiary just takes over. And then you got ease of transfer. If I want to sell you a house that's in a trust and you get this trust stuff, I just assign the beneficial interest. No closing costs, nothing changes except now you own the trust that owns the house. No closing costs, nothing changes downtown because it's already in a trust. So I'm assigning you now personal property, not real property, because that's what the beneficial interest in a trust is. So
all valuable. This is all valuable.
A 2-hour seminar in 3 minutes.
Look at that. All right. So everybody got a little taste of that. That's why you just got to sign up for Ron's program, and he's going to elaborate, probably give you the forms and whatever you need. But you know, Ron, I had a mentor of mine in Miami that told me something similar that you just mentioned. Why have properties all in the same LLC? Because if you get a judgment against one, they got a judgment against all. And I remember he had said, you should get an LLC, different LLC for every different kind of property. And it's like having insurance.
That just kills me when they say that. It's just ridiculous, actually.
Yeah, so it's
any attorney that's advising that, Al, just does not understand the land trust. By the way, it's a grantor revocable trust. That's what you should be calling it. They might understand it. Shouldn't have too much trouble with it here in Florida.
Gotcha. Yeah. You know, land trusts are statutory in Florida. There's other states that have it. Sometimes it's case law, but you know, that's great tip there. Ron, so right now, what are you doing investing wise? Like, where are you finding the markets are heating up or cooling down in Florida? Where are you focusing?
Well, we're in a hot market, which is okay, because I've been through 6 of these cycles now, and it don't really make any difference to me, hot or slow or whatever. I'm going to do deals because people always want to sell and others always want to buy. I'm in terms business now more than anything else. And the beautiful part about it is when you get ready to put that lease option tenant buyer in there, you're going to raise that price, which we always did anyway. And I mean, they're standing in line, and it's a matter of who's got the most money. And I won't do a deal that I don't get at least $20,000 up front for their non-refundable option deposit. But it is harder to get terms now because the market is so hot. And on the other hand, you only need a deal or 2 or 3 a month. And geez, you're into 7 figures annually. However, there's always a market for people who will take terms. And that's what some people just have so much time struggling with. They think that because the market's hot, everybody can just put it on there and it'll sell for what it's worth, and they'll stand in line to get the property and overbid on it. That's fake news, man. That's fake news. When I do a training, in fact, I just got through with one. Get this, I did a 4-day training, which I do almost every month. We did 29 deals on terms for students who sent in their leads, and my mentors called them 29 deals in 3 days.
Wow.
That means we called them on the phone, negotiated the terms. About half of them were nothing down. Some of them were 7-figure houses. In other words, I wasn't dealing in junk. These are pretty houses in pretty neighborhoods. And we make more money on those than we do flipping, way more than you wholesaling a house. And we keep the asset. And I want to point that out, Al, because all the flippers out there, God bless them. You know, I probably taught them, but they forgot to keep learning. You flip a house and you make 10 grand, that's what you get. 10 grand, maximum taxes, no residual income, no future. And then you got to go flip it again. It's like a job. Now take a pretty house, put a tenant buyer in there, collect 20 grand. You get a monthly cash flow on top of that from the difference between the rent and the payment. You get growth, appreciation. You get depreciation, lower your taxes. You get long-term capital gains if it takes more than a year to sell it. And the big one, you get debt pay down. Every month that goes by, you're getting more and more and more money, and you get wealth. You create wealth. Now you can do this inside of your IRA or your solo 401k and never pay taxes on it. And of course, I teach folks how to never pay taxes even if they don't. You don't ever have to pay taxes when you cash out of real estate if you invest in a little bit of training. No need to legally.
So you're a big proponent of using the self-directed IRA and using
I
the
am.
other, using
I'm
the
a
other accounts.
direct opponent of doing anything I can legally keep money from the IRS.
Right.
That's our right, you know.
Keep it away from Uncle Sam. I got you on that.
Yeah. What do they do with it?
So
Launder it.
in terms of all the loans and the mortgage and stuff like that, which niche markets though? So in Florida specifically, like what niche markets are you focusing on? Is it the pre-foreclosures, it's the tax delinquencies, or is it really like a combination of a whole bunch of things that you're finding heating up?
So in my case, there's several different markets that I go after. But remember, I like 90% of my business is the terms business. But there are a big difference between qualified leads and not so qualified leads. We have this thing called a Gold Club. And for $59 a month, you get this massive amount of benefits. And one of those benefits is for sale by owner leads. We have we use a company that scours 20,000 websites a day. And they bring in all the FSBO ads in the 2 counties that our client picks. That's a for sale by owner ad. And these go directly to them every day, and then they should forward them to our virtual assistants to call them to get a property information sheet. Okay. So those are ongoing leads, but they are the lowest quality because they're people advertising on the internet. However, that's the pool we just got 19 deals from.
Wow.
And deals from in 3 days. So now I teach the difference between the quality leads and the not so quality leads, which are the internet leads, is between night and day. So I'm always going after sellers who will call me. If they call you, they're way easier to work with. They're way more motivated, and you get a lot more deals. But I mean, I'll say it again, I haven't added them up yet, but I guarantee you we did a couple $1 million worth of deals here or more, and created at least $800,000, $900,000, $1 million worth of cash coming in within the next 60 days or so for these folks that sent these leads in. But here's 3 days. Okay.
Right.
Not
Right. That's a lot.
months, 3 days.
Yeah.
Now they got to be followed up on and all that. Some of them are going to drop out, but so what? So it's an amazing thing to do that many deals in that many days, especially with those constraints that we had in trying to do them while we're doing an event.
Oh, for sure. And so, I mean, these sellers are not just calling to say, hey, I found Ron Legrand. Hey, I found the program. Obviously, there's a lot of marketing that goes involved in all of this stuff. Cold calls, mailers, door knocking, none of well, let's hear that. I love that. So
first of all, I don't want anybody doing any cold calls. That's no way. We only talk to people that have called us that have a house for sale, or they're publicly advertised they have a house for sale. There ain't no cold calling. In other words, they're asking us to call them. There is some degrees of marketing, but not like you think. In fact, there's so many ways with social media today. Yeah, many of my students are not paying anything to find sellers. They just use social medias that they have available. And then there are some ways where you can spend money finding sellers. We have letters. We have Facebook ads. In fact, you just hear my phone ring?
yeah, was that a seller?
That was a seller calling on a Facebook ad.
Oh, we should have gone live on that one.
We couldn't.
This is how Ron locks up the deal. That's going to be my next question. How does he lock up the deal?
Well, I don't take the calls normally, but we just ran some Facebook ads, and I said I want to take the calls this week, and that was one of them. So
good, very good. Well, see, it's working. So you like the social media, actually. You find that that's kind of what's working.
If you say I like it, I like the use of it. I don't use it.
Right.
You mentioned I don't go on Facebook. I don't go on any of that stuff. That's not what I should be doing as the entrepreneur. I should be focusing on getting everybody else to do that. Besides, right. I just can't stand it. It's just a gross waste of time for me. I got better things to do, play around on the internet. But what a tool. What a tool. And we teach people how to use it to get sellers to call them. Now, these are paid Facebook ads that I just did here, and that's okay. Many of my students are doing that. Spend $20, $30 a day and get sellers calling them. No better leads than that.
Wow.
Yeah, I like your probate leads too. We are mailing to probates, pre-probates and post-probates.
Gotcha.
I think you teach, don't you?
Well, yeah, in the probate world, there's the different leads, right? The pre-probates, the probates,
Yeah.
and then after
Mhm.
probates. And
Yeah.
so it depends like what kind of lead it is. And, you know, we'll talk about probate, but you know better than anybody that they are one of the most highly motivated leads because they don't need the house anymore. They moved to Ohio already. They don't need it.
Well, I'll tell you what I learned way back. I've done several of these. I kind of like to get people pre-probate, especially on the lower end houses, because many of them just can't afford to go through probate. And I'll be happy to do that for them and pay the cost of it as long as I get the house when it's through. Oh, God, yeah, they get money. They usually get money, but they don't get it until I get clear title. So in my case, I get a quitclaim deed now, which means nothing except whatever interest they get, I got. And then I get a warranty deed after we clear it up, just to protect myself. And that helps them when whatever we agree upon. And of course, you know, if I'm going to do that, the price is always low on the house. But that's a great way to do the probates. Then that's the pre-probates. And then I'm dealing with the individuals, then the ones that are inheriting the property. I'd much rather deal with them than attorneys, I'll tell you that.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
You know, tell us
Hey.
about that. Now we're in probate. Now we're in the probate world. Why don't we just talk about this? So
Right.
talk to me about like where you have seen probate. You know, you've done a lot of deals. What are your thoughts on it? Craziest deal, wildest probate, what it's all about.
Okay. You know how to get an attorney out of a tree, Al?
I haven't heard this joke yet.
Cut the rope. I suppose you know how to find a good attorney, right?
I don't.
Start digging.
Start thinking.
Never mind. I got a book. I ain't gonna read the whole book.
The whole book. Yeah, you get an attorney joke.
I get my jokes from attorneys though.
Oh, good.
All right. Now, what the hell was the question?
All about probate. Talk to us all about probate, Ron.
About
because many investors, forget me in this picture with the probate world. Many investors like probate deals. They're highly motivated. There's good margins.
Yeah.
There's good spreads.
Yeah.
But there's the nightmares that they've heard too. I'm not talking about the 2 to 4 day specials or how quick you can do these things. I'm talking about the ones where it's a great deal, but they take forever. Or maybe you've had a great success on the probates. Talk to us about probates. I mean, you've been doing it so long, you've seen a lot of this stuff.
Well, I haven't actually been after probates for a while, but we're starting to do that right now. But you know, if it comes in different, you gotta be able to adapt to whatever the situation is. And some of them do take a long time, but what the heck, if you don't get a deal that makes sense, you're not going to even get in the game to begin with. And what you're doing though, here's the key, Al, what you're doing for that seller is something that most investors either don't know how to do or don't want to do or don't have the patience to do. So when I can do what others won't, I can make money others will never make. And once I learn the system, which ain't complicated to learn because most of it's done by you, there's nothing for me to do but be able to learn what the next move is here to get this thing to a conclusion. And if I don't know that, I call the attorney and ask him that I intend to have do the probate.
You know, while I've been doing all the speaking and the webinar seminars, I actually came up with a quote a week or two ago. Really, all probate real estate is another real estate transaction with a puzzle.
Yeah.
And if you can figure out the puzzle, it's just the same thing. You don't have to know all of those weird things in the probate world. You just got to lock up the deals like you normally do.
Yeah. And the puzzle's not that hard. I mean, you just got to go through probate. It's up to you to figure out what that entails.
Yeah.
All the work.
Yeah, I have to do the work. Exactly.
You do the work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I gotta. What's this? Who's this? Yeah.
Well, but for my whole life, I've been having attorneys do all the work and I've been making all the money. I don't see any problem with that.
So it's nothing new to you. Okay, that's good.
Yeah. You chose your profession, Al. I just want you to know that.
Yeah, I did. That is for sure. I did. Well, tell me, Ron, so whether it's a probate deal, whether it's a regular foreclosure, tax delinquency, so like when you call this person back, let's just say, for example, how are you building trust between you and the seller to get to the next step in the deal? How are you growing that relationship?
When you're talking to sellers with the problems that you just mentioned, it's not about building trust. They got a problem. They need a solution. If you sound like you are that solution, you don't need to worry about trust. Okay. And now when they're in probate, it's very simple. I mean, when they're about to start probate, or I find out, you know, sometimes they think they own the house, but they don't own it yet till it goes through probate. which could have easily been avoided with a land trust, but who's going to tell them that ahead of time? So anyway, I just say, listen, is probate the only thing stopping you from selling the house? Well, yes. Well, then why don't you let me do the probate for you at my expense? And then after it's over, I'll pay you whatever you and I can agree upon that you're going to get. And you can just sit back and relax and let me do the work. That's not a hard sale at all.
Right. Yeah, you're just telling them your position, how you can help them solve the problem, and by that on its own, you're helping them open up. They're not going to be closed, so that's how you get to the next step, right?
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
And even in foreclosure, same thing. You know, as long as we can agree upon a price, you don't worry about the rest. I'm going to take care of the payments, bring it current, do all that. When we close it with an attorney, there's nothing for you to think about except can we agree upon the price and when you want to sell.
Right. Okay. So once you've built that solution, or you've got the solution for them, you built the trust, let's say, when you're doing that, what is one of your most important tips or tricks to locking up the contract either quickly or locking up the deal period?
Well, tell you get a contract, you got nothing. And I always teach that's once you come to an oral agreement, you better get it in writing at lightning speed. And you don't spend a dime on this property until you get it in writing. And once you get it in writing, the next thing to do is send it over to have title checked on it. And then I know I got clear title. And if I don't have clear title, then I know what I got to do to clean up the title. Or in some cases, it's not clean upable. So that kills the deal. So contract first, then title check immediately thereafter, and then proceed with whatever it is that's got to be done before closing. And that includes probate. How do I know these kids are the only heirs?
Right. What happens then? You don't have them all. What do? You got to ask questions.
I got to have them all. I'm not running through probate so one sibling can wind up creating a big mess for me after I clean up the mess. I want them all.
Right. And then you got to find the time to do it and get them all together. And then if that doesn't work, then I'm sure you're coming up with creative solutions like the partition and what do we do and how do we do it? A whole other topic. But you actually said it in your comment there. Biggest deal killers, Ron, in your deals, it sounds like title or something, or the sellers, not all of them being there, is a deal killer. What are some or one of the biggest deal killers you run into or you've had in your 30, 40 years?
Usually the biggest deal killer is a relative. Okay. They go for professional advice from morons and they get crappy advice and they make a decision based on that from people who have no idea what they're talking about. And I know that's very difficult to overcome. I mean, because they're related and I'm not related to them. I just had one of those yesterday. I was on the phone. I negotiated an agreement on an $800,000 house. I had everything done, had prepared the contract, prepared the addendum, and then she took it to her brother. Okay. Her brother talked her out of it. What you going to do? The answer is move on. Quit crying over spilled milk, go milk another cow.
Right. And I mean, there's nothing you can do about following up on that deal, can you?
Well, you can follow up and try to save it, which I haven't done yet. But again, I'm not going to fight their relatives' opinions because they're going to put a lot more weight on them than they am me, a stranger. And, you know, it is what it is. Besides, I follow up later. Okay, on that particular deal, if they get talked out of it today, well, guess what? That ain't going to get their house sold because their brother didn't offer to buy it. Okay, I did. And I'd be closing in a week or two. And the house needed some work. And that's going to keep them from selling it to an owner-occupant who can qualify for a loan. They're going to go to a house that doesn't need any work. Right. So the seller's the one that's got the problem. So I'll make sure that I'm here when they're ready. And a lot of them come back. Some of them don't. I don't care. I'm too busy with other deals to care. And that's the key. I see a lot of students get one deal working, spend all their time and energy on that one deal, and it turns out to be a golden turd. Now they wasted all this time. Goal is get a bunch of leads coming in, a bunch of deals working, and you won't care about any one of them.
Amazing advice for all those that are out there that got the one deal, you know, time to move on. Time valuation is very important in this business. So let me ask you before I transition is, have you found title and the world of the title and closing and they pull the commitment to be a deal killer in and of itself? I mean, you'll find that there could be a phantom mortgage. It could be a judgment. It could be, how do you handle those, Ron?
Every once in a while, I do. I don't handle them I asked the title agent or the attorney, can you fix this? And if they can't fix it, then I'm going to go back to the seller and say, hey, this has got to be fixed before I or anyone else can buy it, for that matter. If there's anything I can do, I will. But I'm not going to track down a relative who didn't sign the deed way back. That's their job. I'm just not going to do it. And if they can't do it, they can keep the house, as far as I'm concerned, or they can go hire a private investigator. So, so many different things that could go wrong, but honestly, they don't go wrong as often as people might think. And that's why we have title. That's why we use professionals, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, you need professionals on your help and your deal.
Well, aren't you amazed by how many people don't think so?
Not anymore.
Do you know how hard I pound on people to use attorneys to do their closings? And then, of course, no matter what I say, you know that a lot of them are bypassing the attorneys. And I thought the same way, Al. Can't what I attorney can't tell you how many deals I close with title companies, but the title company is not going to represent you in court.
Right. So, Ron, so now that we're transitioning to this world, I mean, we're on Zoom and we're on the phones more than ever with the way that COVID hit. Where do you see real estate transitioning right now? Because we all thought it was going to be a slowdown in April and May. Where do you see it going?
Every investor, friend of mine, every client of mine that's active says this is their best year ever. It did not slow them. That slowed down everybody in March, maybe April, but after that, man, it just took off. And I've never had anybody refuse entry into the house since it started, actually. And if I did, I don't care, because we get videos of the house. But it is not, I think it just made people sometimes more motivated to sell and others more motivated to buy. And if you're asking me what's going to happen in 2021, I don't have a clue. Neither do you, neither does anybody else. Anybody who says they do is making it up. So I don't really care, because I'm going to adapt. And I know, here's something I know. If you internalize this, you won't worry about all that crap you have no control over. People will always need to sell, and others will always need to buy. You only need to do 2 or 3 of those a month. That's all you need, and you can do that in any market. When I started in 1982, Al, the prime rate was 18% interest. Try doing real estate in that market, okay? And I mean, realtors were dropping like flies. And I still did 23 deals in my first 6 months, amazingly. Okay, they were all bunker crap because I couldn't get my head above that. But I made more money on a lot more than I made on my job.
Hey, and you're doing it now. Everything's working out now.
Yeah, well, I couldn't be employed now. I would be a terrible employee.
Well, Ron, you're a wealth of information and you're a busy guy. You have a lot going on. At the end of the day, people want to do your course. It's out there. And, tell everybody, where can they find you? How can they find you? Email, whatever you want. And who are you looking for to reach out to you and connect with you? Who do you want?
Good. It's a good question, actually. I'm looking for people who want more out of life. I'm looking for people who don't think they're going to get a free education. There's no such thing. Don't pay for it one way or the other. And I'm looking for folks, some of them want to get out of a job. Some of them want to get out of a profession. Some of them want a good retirement plan. Some of them are retired and don't have anything to do and are looking for something to entertain themselves with. See, people come to me from all walks of life. I have surgeons coming to me because they don't want to do what they're doing anymore, because they all need one thing, and that's more cash flow in their life. And that's what I'm all about. But I'm about the residual income, not to go work your ass off just to keep making money like you have a job or, a normal business. And when they see how quick and easy that can be built, it's not hard for me to get their attention. And we're so automated today, there's very little for one to do to operate this business. And that's the cool part, because it's not a time-sucking business like most people. Poor folks go out there and buy a franchise and they only have to work a half a day. They just have to decide which 12 hours it is. And then what do they get? Some of them are not even breaking even. Some of them are making a meager living, which is less money in a year than we can make on one house. So my goal to get the message out, you don't have to be normal.
And you want to be creative and you want to change the mindset of what you're doing. That's what Ron has in his program. So, if anybody's out there that really is interested in that and wants to change what they're doing, Ron's got it. So Ron, thanks again for taking your time out of your day to be on here with me and giving us the Cliff Notes version of your whole program. Now we understand everything, right? Not everything.
No.
Right, exactly.
Go to prettyhouseterms.com/Al and take my free 90-minute training, which, by the way, has Q&A at the end. And you'll see what I do today. I've done it all. I'm doing residential, commercial, land, all that stuff. But I'm telling you, there's no easier business than what you're going to learn on that 90-minute presentation. Because, by the way, you don't need money and you don't need credit. In fact, if you use credit, I am going to personally come spank you, because that is the biggest mistake you can make. We do not guarantee debt on Planet Ron. We operate without risk. So no matter what happens, we're not going to have to start all over. And I think you're rare. Everybody wants you to go out to the bank and get a loan or raise your credit card. Baloney. We don't use our money and we don't use our credit. And if you don't believe it, get on there and find out why. And then hang around me and I'll have to prove it. Whenever I do a seminar, Al, we prove it. We do deals while we're teaching how to do deals. And that's exactly what people need to see. Anyway, I appreciate you interviewing me today. I hope it's been a benefit to your folks.
Oh, it's going to be amazing micro content. Everybody's going to love it. And like before, like we did our podcast before, people pay attention. They know who you are. You are the man, the myth, the legend, the Ron Legrand. So thank you so much for coming on the show. And I hope we can get to do it again some other time.
Thank you, sir.
All right, everybody, if you want more content like this, check out my Al Nicoletti YouTube channel. I have videos on probate, quiet title partitions, and now I'm going to be having content on the Al Nicoletti show. Maybe amazing people like Ron and other super investors, movers, shakers, rising rock stars, and other leaders in the community. So there will be tons of content on there. So I will see you next time on the Al Nicoletti Show.